Chapter 2. To Return and Still Be Missing. Please sign at the bottom of the page, Chief Inquisitor. Thomas Eller scanned the document and sighed impatiently. This was a mistake. A grievous mistake. Nonetheless, he signed Hazel Enda's release. The administrator nodded curtly. The Sovereign of Athelion thanks you and your magicians for continuing to support the kingdom. We're not magicians, Thomas corrected, struggling to contain his annoyance. At least not all of us. Some of us are mages, others spellcasters, but few are just magicians. Oh? The woman blinked vacantly. What's the difference? He read her thoughts using sorcery to see if she was as empty-headed as she appeared. She was. A spellcaster is any human who uses one of the 7 schools of magic. A mage is a spellcaster who has proficiency in 2 or more schools of magic, and a magician is someone who has proficiency in the 7th school of magic, which is called lesser magic. She smiled. Well, isn't that something? I'm not one for jargon, but I will try to remember that. Thank you for the information. Indeed, Thomas said, rising to his feet. The administrator stood opposite his desk, within the Inquisition's safe house in Coravain. He maintained a neutral expression to mask his exasperation. What he mentioned hardly qualified as jargon, so much as common knowledge from the past 5 centuries. I would like to speak with her before she departs. Certainly, the administrator replied, swiping a gray curl behind her ear. His Majesty extends all courtesy and respect to the Inquisition. Thomas resisted rolling his eyes. If the king respected the Inquisition as this sycophant said, then he wouldn't have forced the girl's release against Thomas's recommendation. She rose from the dead, which placed her squarely under the jurisdiction of the Inquisition. Remanding her to the Sapphire Guard would have been bad enough, but remanding the girl to her parents, who were little more than peasants, bordered on criminal. Please tell the Inquisitor at the front desk to send her in when you leave. Of course. I'll wait outside with her parents until you've finished. He nodded, and she exited, closing the door behind her. Naturally, she wouldn't leave until Hazel returned to her parents. The administrator needed to ensure the Inquisition did nothing untoward. Not that they would. Still, having a delegate from the beloved ruler of Athelion might put her parents at ease. At least, until they saw their daughter. Or whatever was left of her. A light knock on the door came moments after it was shut. Enter. Hazel entered, wearing a dark gray dress with long sleeves and a matching cloak. From what the Chief Inquisitor could determine, the material was expensive and a gift from the king, brought by the woman who now waited outside. Hazel stood at the desk. Her eyes drifted idly around the office, but the rest of her face remained unchanged and emotionless. Thomas forced a smile, which she didn't reciprocate. Well, Hazel, it appears your parents have arrived to bring you home. She didn't respond. Are you excited? No. He squinted at her. No nervousness or interest in seeing your parents again? Not really, she said. Should I be? That isn't for me to say. Would you prefer to stay here? Not particularly. Then what is it you want? He studied her face. Despite the 3 weeks he examined her, there were many mysteries to unravel, and even more questions that needed answering. He had kept her with the Inquisition, but during her stay the king commanded the Sapphire Guard to oversee every test and ensure her humane treatment. Even if the reason for their presence was noble, it slowed the normal operations of the Inquisition significantly, and so they made frustratingly little progress. I don't want anything. He didn't need to use sorcery to know she spoke the truth. She stood nearly motionless. Her behavior had remained constant since they happened upon her in Hickory Alkirk's lab. When they ran tests, she occasionally asked questions, but she was generally apathetic to her surroundings. Perhaps seeing your parents will reignite your emotions. If the Inquisition and the Sapphire Guard couldn't fix me, I don't know what good my parents will do. Do you need to be fixed? Yes, she said, her eyes meeting his but remaining impassive. I'm not like I was. I'm incomplete. Broken. Do you wish to be as you were? It's like I said. Her eyes fell. I don't want anything. He strummed his fingers on his desk. I do not think your parents possess any magic comparable to what we've used on you thus far, but it's possible you may remember the bond you shared with them many months ago. That could rekindle your feelings. It doesn't matter to me. Well, if it doesn't matter, then going home with them should be acceptable. It is. Then I suppose you can go see them immediately. For the foreseeable future, I would like to meet with you once a week to ensure you are healthy and no sinister magic awakens that would cause you or your family distress. He rose and circled his desk, gesturing to the door. Come, it's time to leave. Hazel did as he requested. He previously noted her compliance in his research was consistent with the behavior exhibited by many zombies, but she was far from mindless. Furthermore, zombies would only listen to the one who summoned them, or conjurers by proxy. Her obedience stemmed from no compulsion, except a lack of motivation to resist. Even during examinations, which would have caused any other young woman her age to blush, she demonstrated no embarrassment. He ushered her into the main hallway and to the exit. As he passed a window, he noticed a man and woman standing anxiously beside the administrator outside. He stopped before the front door and smiled at her. It's time for us to part. If anything changes, you can inform me during one of our weekly appointments. I'll let you meet your family privately. She nodded and left the building. Thomas strode to the window and watched. The windows to the building were obscured by magic, keeping others from looking in. He cared little about the actual privacy of their reunion, but desired to observe and learn what he could. As an inquisitor, he served as more than law enforcement. He was a researcher, too. How Hazel reacted to her parents and how they received her might cast some light on this mysterious case. Were the parents secretly responsible for her death? Were they working with the king and answering to him? Did the king hire Hickory Alkirk to raise her from the dead? While the probable answer to all those questions was no, he still needed to investigate. After all, he was an inquisitor. Hazel's mother, a woman in her 40s, raised both hands over her mouth. Tears formed in the corner of her widened eyes, but did not fall. She took a tentative step forward. Hazel's father, of similar age to her mother, but muscular and scarred from numerous burns common to a smith, stood ashen-faced as he stared at his daughter. Although Thomas could not hear the exchange, he saw her mother mouth her name. Hazel responded affirmatively. Lynn Enda, the mother, closed the gap between them and held Hazel's shoulders at arm's length. Thomas leaned closer, studying the parents. Kyle Enda approached his daughter and put one hand over his wife's, which rested on the girl's shoulder. The man looked away, quivering. His wife wept openly. Soon, the woman held Hazel in her arms, though Hazel remained indifferent. Kyle hugged both of them together, but still she moved not an inch. The administrator interjected after several minutes and ushered them into a nearby carriage, which immediately departed. Thomas left the window and returned to his desk. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. Many emotions were at play between them that he doubted they expected to feel. He considered how he might have reacted if a loved one returned from the dead. Certainly it would not have resembled the display he witnessed. The return of their daughter must have been an answer to their most fervent prayers and profoundest wishes. Was her return all they desired? From what Thomas gathered, she had been vivacious once, but that liveliness had disappeared. Would her parents thank the gods for returning their daughter, or would they come to regret their pleas? Was Hazel still their child, altered as she was? The initial answer, and one naturally assumed by the ignorant and optimistic, would be yes. In time, that could change. He recognized their hesitancy. They knew this girl with her green skin and lack of emotions was not the same Hazel they raised. She returned, but not unchanged. If she remained this unfeeling automaton, then this doubt would build. Thomas tapped a feather quill against a page, debating what to tell the Grand Inquisitor. Hazel may not be an immediate danger to herself, but lesser trials had broken stronger people than the Enda family. In time, they might beg the Inquisition to take her 1,000 miles away to Salavarian. When that happened, the Inquisition would be ready.